Let me tell you something nobody at Zenithar Academy wants printed on a recruitment brochure. Every single year, without fail, some overconfident alien cadet looks at the quiet human in the back row and thinks that one looks easy. Every year. Like clockwork. Like a species-wide inability to read the room, or possibly a genetic predisposition toward learning things the hard way. This year, that cadet's name was Kalen Vosk, and he was about to become the latest cautionary tale in a very long, very stupid tradition. Zenithar Academy sat in orbit around a neutral moon, a glittering will-shaped station where the galaxy sent its brightest young minds to study xenodiplomacy and combat theory, which is a polite way of saying they taught people from a dozen species how to not immediately murder each other during first contact, and, failing that, how to murder each other efficiently. It was prestigious. It was expensive. It had a food court with 43 different types of cuisine, only one of which was edible to humans, which tells you everything you need to know about how much thought went into accommodating the one species everyone secretly hoped wouldn't show up. Humans were rare at the academy. Not because they weren't smart enough, quite the opposite. Human test scores made half the admissions board nervous, but because most species considered Earth's application essay, which was basically, yes, we are aware our home planet has tried to kill us in over 4,000 distinct ways and we would like to leave, to be either a joke or a threat. Ren Callahan was one of maybe 6 humans on the entire station. She sat in the back row of advanced combat theory, doodled little cartoon spaceships in the margins of her notes, and had exactly zero interest in proving anything to anyone. She was, by every visible metric, unremarkable. Average height. Average build. The kind of person you'd walk past in a hallway and immediately forget, which, as it turns out, is a very specific and very dangerous kind of camouflage. Kalen Vosk was the opposite of unremarkable. He was Krithan, a species built like someone had crossed a linebacker with a rhinoceros beetle and then given it 4 arms out of sheer spite. Chitinous plating, low-gravity muscle density that made him absurdly strong even by his own homeworld standards, and a class ranking that put him at the top of every combat simulation the Academy could throw at him. He was, in his own considered opinion, kind of a big deal. He also had opinions about humans. Loud ones. They're basically naked mole rats that learned to use tools, he told his squad one afternoon, loud enough for the back row to hear, which was, of course, the point. No natural armor. No claws. No venom. Slowest apex predator in galactic recorded history. I heard their own planet has more things that want to kill them than actual humans. His friends laughed. It was the kind of laugh you give when you want the joke to have been funnier than it was. Ren did not look up from her doodle of a spaceship shaped like a rubber duck. This should have been Kalen's first warning sign. When you insult an entire species to their face and they don't even bother glancing up, that's not weakness. That's someone who has genuinely, deeply stopped caring what you think, which is a very different and much scarier thing. The professor that day was a Threll instructor named Vozon, an old soldier scholar type with too many battle scars and not nearly enough patience for cadet posturing. The lesson was on adaptive combat strategy. Specifically, the idea that a smaller or seemingly weaker combatant could still win by exploiting environment, endurance, or unconventional tactics. Cadet Vosk, Vozon said, gesturing at the display. You've studied the Rethkari campaign. Explain why the smaller force won. Kalen puffed up. Superior tactics. Terrain control. Also probably armor didn't matter because, he glanced back, smirking. Because some species don't even need armor. They're just built to survive anything. Right, Callahan? Ren finally looked up. That's actually not why they won, she said, entirely unbothered. They won because the larger force assumed size equaled advantage and stopped respecting the terrain. Classic overconfidence. You should read the after-action report instead of the summary slide. A ripple of laughter went through the room, the good kind, the kind that makes the person being laughed at go a very particular shade of embarrassed. Kalen's mandibles clicked, which for a Krithan is basically the sound of a jaw tightening. You think you know combat theory better than me? I think I know how to read, Ren said, and went back to her spaceship doodle. And this, ladies, gentlemen, and assorted galactic pronouns, is how wars get started. Not over territory. Not over resources. Over a teenage bug man's ego getting lightly bruised in front of his friends. Fine, Kalen said, standing so fast his chair scraped. Prove it. Spar with me. Right now. Simulation ring. Let's see how your little theories hold up when there's an actual apex predator in front of you instead of a textbook. The room went very, very quiet in that specific way rooms go quiet right before something either hilarious or catastrophic happens. Professor Vozon, who had clearly seen this exact scene play out approximately 1,000 times over a long teaching career, rubbed the ridge above his eyes. Cadet Vosk, this is a classroom, not. With respect, Professor, Kalen said, isn't this exactly the kind of teaching moment you're always talking about? Applied theory? Vozon looked at Ren. Ren shrugged, which in retrospect should have told everyone in that room absolutely everything they needed to know. Fine, Vozon said, in the tone of a man who has decided to let the universe teach this particular lesson so he doesn't have to. Sparring ring. Standard safety protocols. No lethal force. And Vosk, he added, almost as an afterthought, I'd reconsider. Kalen laughed. He actually laughed. Bless him. While the class filed toward the sparring ring, a small knot of alien students clustered near the door, trading what they clearly believed were expert opinions on human physiology. I read they don't even have retractable claws, said a Glimmerfolk exchange student named Io, all luminous skin and nervous energy. And their skin tears if you scratch it too hard. No exoskeleton. No natural weapons at all. Weak lungs too, added a Thrall cadet. Can't even breathe underwater or in low oxygen. Fragile circulatory system. One good hit to the head and it's over. Io, to her credit, actually looked uncertain. I don't know. I read something else. Something about how their planet has more things that can kill you than any other charted world. Predators, diseases, weather, the ocean, the other humans. That's an exaggeration, the Thrall cadet said, waving her off. Every species thinks their homeworld is the scariest. I'm just saying, Io mumbled, maybe we should look at the actual data before. Nobody's listening to the nerd today, Io, someone said cheerfully, and they all filed into the observation deck, already placing bets, already comfortable, already about to be very, very wrong. The sparring ring was a reinforced dome designed to contain everything from Krithan brawls to Thrall energy discharges. Kalen strode in wearing full sparring armor, plates gleaming, for arms flexing with the kind of showmanship usually reserved for parade grounds. Ren walked in wearing a plain gray t-shirt and sweatpants, stretching her shoulders like she was about to go for a light jog instead of fight a four-armed exoskeletal combat cadet. No armor? Kalen asked, genuinely surprised. Didn't think I'd need it, Ren said. The crowd on the observation deck made a collective noise that translated, across at least 9 different species, into oh no, she's one of those humans. The match began. Kalen opened aggressive, which surprised absolutely no one. He was fast, strong, and had trained his whole life for exactly this kind of physical confrontation. His first strike, a heavy overhand blow from his upper right arm, connected solidly with Ren's shoulder. She staggered half a step. Rolled her neck. Grinned. Okay, she said. That one actually hurt a little. Kalen blinked. On a human, that reaction would have signaled fear, retreat, maybe crying. On Ren, it signaled roughly the same thing a starter pistol signals at a track meet. You're supposed to fall down, Kalen said, half joking, half genuinely confused. I know, Ren said. I read the brochure too. He came at her again, faster this time, all 4 arms working in a coordinated flurry that should have ended the fight in about 4 seconds. Ren didn't try to overpower him, she couldn't have, not against something built like a Krithin, but she didn't need to. She ducked, weaved, took 2 more solid hits that would have dropped most humanoids in the room, and kept moving. Kept talking. "You're telegraphing your left lower strike," she said conversationally, dodging said strike. "Big wind up. My grandmother could see that coming and she's been dead for 6 years. "Why," Kalen panted, already breathing harder than he expected to be this early, "are you talking so much?" "Because I'm not tired yet," Ren said. "You will be, though. Give it a few minutes." This was the moment, right about here, that the entire observation deck went silent, because a very specific and very old piece of human biology was starting to make itself known, and none of them had the faintest idea what they were watching. "See, here's the thing about humans that doesn't fit neatly on a specs sheet. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We don't have claws or venom or the ability to breathe underwater or see in the dark. What we have, what we've always had, since we were skinny hairless apes running down animals 4 times our size on the plains of a planet that spent millions of years actively trying to kill us, is the simple, horrifying willingness to just keep going. Persistence hunting. Chase something long enough, in enough heat, across enough distance, and eventually it collapses from exhaustion while you're still, somehow, annoyingly, upright. Add a species-wide talent for spite, a truly unreasonable pain tolerance developed over several 100,000 years of stubbing toes and getting back up anyway, and a cultural relationship with violence best described as, "we invented the concept of trash talk during actual combat," and you get something that doesn't look dangerous until it's much, much too late to matter. Kalen swung again. Ren caught his arm, not blocked, caught, redirected the momentum with a small twist of her hips, and used his own overextended strike to pull him off balance. He stumbled forward. She stepped in, low, and drove her shoulder into his center of mass with a move so basic it was taught in the first week of any human self-defense class on Earth, the kind of thing gym teachers demonstrate on bored teenagers. Kalen, 4-armed apex predator of a low-gravity warrior world, went down like a folding chair. The observation deck erupted into noise, half shock, half disbelief, one very smug "I told you so" from Io that got absolutely drowned out. Kalen lay on the mat for a second, stunned, more from the sheer indignity of it than any actual damage. That wasn't even a real technique," he sputtered. "That was a shove." "Yep," Ren said, offering him a hand up, which he did not take, mostly out of principle. "It's called a hip throw. We teach it to children. Small ones. Before they're allowed to use scissors unsupervised." "This isn't fair," Kalen said, still sitting on the mat, staring up at her. "You should be exhausted. I hit you at least 6 times. "You did," Ren agreed. "It hurts. I'm gonna have bruises tomorrow, and honestly I'm a little annoyed about it. But hurting isn't the same as stopping. That's kind of the whole deal with us." She shrugged, and the sarcasm in her voice softened into something almost gentle, almost like she felt a little bad for him. "Nobody told you the real stats, huh?" "What real stats?" Kalen demanded, still sprawled on the mat like a very large, very offended beetle. "You know what my planet's actual apex predators are?" Ren said, crouching down to his level, elbows on her knees, completely at ease in a way that was somehow more unsettling than if she'd been gloating. "Things bigger than this room. Animals that can bite a human clean in half. We've got venom that stops your heart in under a minute, diseases so small you can't see them that used to kill a third of a continent in a bad year, weather patterns that flatten cities, an ocean that covers 70% of the surface and is actively hostile to breathing creatures at basically every depth. And that's before you get to the fact that historically, statistically, the thing most likely to kill a human has always been other humans." The observation deck had gone very, very quiet. "And somewhere in the middle of all that," Ren continued, standing back up and offering her hand again, somebody looked at all of it, the teeth, the venom, the weather, the ocean, the plague, each other, and said, you know what would be fun? Let's go live in the ocean too. Let's go to the top of the tallest mountain for no reason. Let's poke the thing with the big teeth and see what happens. We didn't survive our homeworld by being the strongest thing on it. We survived it by being too stubborn to stay dead, and just slightly too curious to know better. Kalen stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he took her hand and let her pull him up. That's not a fair fight, he muttered again, but with considerably less bite in it. You're all just, collectively insane. Basically, yeah, Ren said cheerfully. Nobody said it was fair. It's just how it is. Professor Vozon, who had watched the entire exchange from the edge of the ring with the weary expression of a man who had, in fact, seen this exact outcome dozens of times before, finally spoke up. Match concluded, he said. Cadet Callahan, adequate technique, though I'd prefer less commentary during combat. Cadet Vosk, he paused, considering his words carefully, perhaps some supplementary reading on human physiology before your next confident public assertion. Io, from the observation deck, could not resist. I told everyone. I literally told everyone. Yes, thank you, Io, Vozon said dryly. Noted for the record. Again. Word travels fast on a station with only a few thousand students, and by dinner, the story had already mutated into at least 6 different versions, 3 of which involved Ren supposedly breaking Kalen's arm, which she absolutely had not, and one deeply confused rumor that she'd bitten him, which, no. But the core of it stuck. The quiet human girl who doodles spaceships had thrown the top combat cadet on the station like a sack of laundry, took 6 solid hits doing it, and then explained, calmly, over his own groaning body, that humans were basically the galaxy's most enthusiastic survivors of a planet actively trying to end them. Kalen showed up at Ren's usual table in the food court 2 days later, minus most of his swagger, plus a lot of visible bruising along one arm plate. I want to train with you, he said, without preamble, which for a Krithan noble caste cadet was basically an apology and a white flag rolled into one sentence. Ren looked up from her lunch, the one edible option in the entire food court, a sad little protein bar she'd learned to tolerate, and considered him for a second. You gonna keep talking trash about my species while I do it? Probably, Kalen admitted. It's kind of my personality. Fair, Ren said, and gestured at the empty seat across from her. Sit down. I'll teach you the hip throw properly this time. Might save you some dignity next time you decide to challenge someone in class. He sat. The observation deck full of students who'd watched the match had, over the following weeks, developed a very particular new habit at Zenithar Academy, a habit that spread, eventually, through every incoming class that heard the story. Don't underestimate the quiet human in the back row. Doesn't matter how average they look. Doesn't matter how unbothered they seem. Somewhere behind that bored expression is a few 100,000 years of stubborn, spiteful, endurance-hunting survival instinct just waiting for someone arrogant enough to press the button. The Academy eventually added a line to the incoming cadet orientation packet, right between the section on interspecies dietary restrictions and the fire safety protocols. It read, simply, humans are not what you have been told. Proceed with appropriate caution. Nobody ever explained exactly why that line was there. They didn't have to. Every year, someone would ask a senior cadet about it, and every year, the answer was the same knowing look, followed by 4 words that had become something like local legend. Ask Kalen Vosk. And somewhere in the galaxy's slow, grudging education about Earth and its people, that was really the whole point. Humans weren't the Deathworld's victims. They were its alumni, graduates of the single most aggressively unkillable curriculum in the known universe, walking around the rest of the galaxy with a diploma nobody else wanted, a healthy sense of humor about the whole ordeal, and an infuriating, unstoppable habit of getting back up.